Well, we were on welfare, and these days I hear a lot of people complaining about the people on welfare, and I have a hard time joining with them because I was raised on welfare. We got a check every month from the county, and I guess ultimately it came from the federal government, and we couldn't have survived without that welfare check. It was about $49 a month, I think. And we also got handouts of food, which was really it was canned beef and something like that, and it was really terrible. We usually didn't eat it, and so we didn't even bother to go picking it up. They also gave us handouts of clothing, and I had a pair of dark green corduroys that I didn't like very much, but I didn't have any other pants, so I wore them to school one day, and a kid came up to me and he says, "Those are welfare pants." And I never wore them after that day.
Hmm.
My mother worked in Chelan as a waitress when she was not sick. She was in the hospital a lot of the time, and then she would get well and come out. And when she was out of the hospital, she worked and tried to support us. And she got $1 a day. That was her pay, plus tips, and I suppose maybe she got 50 cents for the tips. And there were a lot of itinerant people who had services to offer, like my music teacher, my violin teacher. He would come into he would work one day in Chelan, one day in Wenatchee, one day in Kashmir, one day. He had 5 different little towns that he went to. And he was having dinner in her restaurant one time, and he told her he was a violin teacher, and so she signed up with him for violin lessons, and the lessons were $1 a piece. And at the end of the year, I got to keep the violin. And there were a lot of home. Later, we moved to Wenatchee, and when I was in high school, lots and lots of what do you call those? Agricultural workers who go from town to town.
Migrant workers.
Migrant workers, yeah, thank you. Lots and lots of migrant workers, because this was the days of the Dust Bowl. These people had lost their farms, they had lost everything in Arkansas and Oklahoma, and so they would go to where there were jobs. And there were hundreds of people flocking into town, beginning, maybe May, to thin the apples, to pick the apricots, to pick the fruits that we had growing in the Wenatchee Valley. And they would stay on and work in the different crops up until the apples were harvested in the fall. And we called them Okies and Arkies, and I got to know a few of them because of the jobs that I got, and discovered that they were real people and they all were human. But they were all, well, they weren't treated very well. They didn't have a good place to live, and at least we were comfortable. We had a permanent house. They didn't have a permanent house. The big thing in those days was getting a job. Everybody had to get a job. All kids had to get a job because there was usually not enough money in the house nobody got an allowance. If you had any money, if you wanted it, it was because you earned it yourself. And I first sold newspapers on the street, and I tried to, and I didn't do very well. When I got old enough, I sold ice cream. I sold candy bars. I bought candy bars in the Payless drugstore for 3 cents a piece and sold them for a nickel in the fruit warehouses where the ladies were packing the apples. I would just walk down and say, candy bars. They would give me a nickel a piece for these. So that was almost 100% markup. And I would make about 40, 50 cents a day, I guess. Sometimes as much as $1 a day. And that was a good, you had to get a job, and because you had no clothes, unless you could earn the money. I was a church janitor for my church, and I got $5 a month for cleaning up the church. When I got old enough, I tried to get a job working in the orchards, but I really didn't do very well. For a while I picked cherries, and the ladders would be 14 foot tall, and you'd stand on the top, dig picking all these cherries, and I didn't do very well at that. So I got a job in the warehouse instead, and that was sort of a prestigious job. But all the teenage kids would be comparing notes, where did you work, and everybody was trying to get a prestige job, and working in the warehouses was one of them.
Once you got out of school, did you have any problems finding a...
Well, I went to, now that's another thing, I don't know how many kids went in the Depression, knew that they were going to go to college, but my family, or somehow something made me know that I was going to go to college.
And then after that, did you have any problems finding a job?
Oh, no, well, I didn't work. After the war, I got part-time jobs, and there was no problem then. And then I got a job as a teacher. I graduated.